There is no God. There's never been a God. There never will be a God. It's just all supernatural bull. That said, I now belong to a church.
18 years of being taught a particular doctrine. I didn't want to say it out loud. Like, I knew that I was losing my faith, but any verbal recognition of that was scary for me, because it's almost one of those things where it's like, if you say it out loud, then it becomes real.
I have seen God at work, and after seeing that, I don't know how I could walk away from that.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to Between Bombs, episode number 5, the Art of Bombing podcast, mini episodes where we talk about tips and tricks for comedy. This week on the show, we're going to be talking about producing live comedy shows, but before we get to that, how's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing this week? Have you had a good week so far? Things going good? It's Tuesday. You made it through Monday. I hope the whole week since the last time you listened to the podcast was good. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with KJ the Comedian. Hope you checked that out. If you haven't checked that out, you can go to the Art of Bombing Pod and catch up on all the previous episodes of this podcast. There's lots of them. That was episode 119. So there's a lot of content you can catch up on if you haven't discovered the Art of Bombing podcast yet. So go check that out on the website. Another thing you can do while you're on the website, if you'd like, is you can leave a comment about the shows. You can contact us through the contact form. Also, something new that I started, I decided I'm not going to do a Patreon for this podcast. Instead, I'm going to do a tip jar. That's right. If you think the tips that you're learning from this podcast are useful, if the stories have helped you, and this podcast helps you in any way that you think is worth paying for, then you can choose to do that by going to the artofbombingpod.com and hitting the tip jar, and you can do a donation of however much money you want. It's not a subscription. It's a one-time donation. You can donate as many times as you want. That's up to you, or you don't have to donate at all. That's okay. This will still be a free podcast, and because we have support from great people like Eternal Confidence. Have you checked that series out yet? Have you went to YouTube and looked it up? I really think you should. It gives a very good different perspectives on spirituality. And all you got to do, search Eternal Confidence on YouTube. It's a great little docu-series. So check that out. And while you're checking it out, tell them Dan from The Art of Bombing told you to come watch it. Leave that in their comment sections. I can't even talk, so they know where you discovered their docuseries. It's a great series, so I really do suggest checking it out. But the best, and the way you can help this podcast is wherever you listen to it, subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends. If this is a helpful podcast and you know somebody that enjoys comedy or wants to learn about comedy, send them to the Art of Bombing Pod and tell them to subscribe to this podcast. Tell them about it. All right, that's enough business. Let's talk about producing live comedy shows. So there's a couple different aspects we're going to cover. The first thing we're going to talk about is venues. If you're going to produce a live show, the first thing you got to decide is where you're going to do it. What kind of a venue are you going to look for? You know, there's a lot of times comedy clubs will let independent producers do shows at comedy clubs on the off nights. You've got bars, you've got comic book shops, you've got people's living rooms. I mean, you've got backyards if it's nice, if you're in California or it's the summertime in the Midwest. There's all kinds of different places where you can do a show these days. Coffee shops, you name it. If you can think of a place where it's possible to put on a show, most likely you'll be able to put on a show there. However, there are some things that you got to keep in mind when you're looking for a venue, because that's going to determine what you can and can't do as far as, what you can charge or what kind of a budget you need. Certain things you need to look for in a venue is the layout of the venue. How is it laid out? Is there a stage? Is there lighting? Is there sound? Those are all important things, because if you look for a venue, say you contact a venue and they don't have any of those things and you want to do a show, now you have to provide all that extra equipment. Now, unless you're a sound guy or a DJ already, most likely you probably don't have equipment like that. So it's definitely helpful to save costs, because then you either have to buy it yourself or you have to rent it. So it's better to look for a venue that's going to have all that equipment already, so that all you have to do is go in, turn some buttons on, and you can go with your show. But another thing you want to think about too when you're looking at venues is the layout of the venue. Like, how are the chairs laid out? How is seating? Can people see the stage from pretty much everywhere in the venue? Or is there space between the stage and where the seating is? Because that'll make for an awkward show. If you have a stage and then suddenly you have 20 feet of dance floor and then you have tables and chairs, it makes a comedy show a little weird and a little awkward, because you can't really interact with the people. It's better to have the tables as close to the stage as possible and then work back from there. Or if there's no tables and they just have chairs, are they going to be able to set them up like a theater style so they're in rows? And if they don't have them, can you provide them? Those are all things you got to think about when you're looking for a venue. And another thing you need to think about when you're looking for a venue to do shows is how enthusiastic is the venue themselves. Are they excited to bring comedy into their venue? Or are they just like, well, we're open, why not? We'll give it a try. Because that's very important, because a lot of shows don't succeed because they don't have the full support of the venue. The venue just looks at it as, well, cool, we'll bring in something, there's some entertainment, we'll see how it goes, whatever, but we're not going to actually try to promote it. Now, there's venues, on the other hand, the complete opposite, that are really excited. They want to help fill it because they know if there's people in there watching the show and it's a good show, those people are going to spend money. And at the end of the day, it is business, and that's what they want to do, is make money. They're looking for ways to get people into their venue. So those are things you need to think about when you're looking at the venue. Then you have to decide on a format. What kind of show are you going to put together? And there's a couple different formats you can do. Obviously, there's the open mic, and most likely that's going to be a free show that you're going to host, and you're going to get thousands of comedians each night, and it's going to be long and dragged out, and eventually it'll probably wear on you. But it's good because you're creating stage time for other people. So there's that option. Then, of course, you have a showcase style option, and that's when you have, anywhere from 6 to 8 comedians on a show. You'll have a host, and everybody does pretty much the same amount of time all the way through the show. And then maybe you even have a headliner that does a little extra time. So you have several spots that maybe do 10 minutes, and then at the end, a headliner does like 20 minutes. That's another format for the show. Or you can decide to do a standard show, which is basically an MC, a feature, and a headline. It's a 3-person show. Sometimes it's 4. Sometimes you throw in a guest spot to do 10, 15 minutes right after the MC. That's really up to you. But you have to decide what kind of format you want, because you also have to decide, how are you going to make money on this show? Because that's important as well. Are you going to charge a cover? Is the venue going to do a free show but just give you the money for the show? Give you a budget to pay your talent? Because that's the other thing you got to think about for a budget, is not just paying your talent and not just taking a fee, a fee for booking the show and producing the show. You've got marketing, you got to make flyers, and if you don't know how to do that, you probably have to pay a graphic designer to do that. Then you have to print the flyers. You have to get them out around, either on public billboards or, like community boards, things like that, windows of coffee shops, stores, that sort of thing. Or you can just do online marketing with Facebook ads and things of that nature, but they all cost money. So you got to think about that when you're putting together a budget. And depending on, what kind of a format you do, you're going to need a bigger show or a bigger budget. Because if you do a show like a standard show, typically, and this is lowballing, keep in mind, this is lowballing. very low. But typically for a standard show, typically the MC will pay anywhere from $25 to $50. Your feature spot might pay $100 to $150, and the headlining spot will pay $200 to $300 plus hotels if they have to travel. So when you get on the high side of that, and that's low. Those are all low numbers. I mean, some shows pay more than that, but that's just to give you a ballpark idea. But you're looking at if you went 250, 150, that's 400 plus another 50, that's 450 just for your talent. Now you got to think about money for marketing, and you got to think about a booking fee, because if you are booking, you should make a little bit of money off producing a show. You shouldn't take all the money, but you definitely should make some money for producing a show, because you are doing the work. So those are things that you need to think about when you do your format, which I already kind of talked about it a little bit. The budget. You got to think about the budget, because you're going to have to pay your talent. You're going to have to pay marketing. You might have to pay, some venues won't provide you with the door person, and you have to bring your own person in to run the door and take tickets and take money at the door. And that person, they're not going to want to work for free unless they really like you, which in that case, good for you. That's awesome that you have very supportive friends. I've been very blessed that way, and I've had some pretty good friends to help with doors and things like that didn't require getting paid a whole lot. Give them some beer, give them some food, and they were cool. They also got to watch the show for free, so it could work out where you could have a good friend that'll do it for free. But either way, it's something to think about when coming up with a budget. Then you also have to think about your ticketing. How are you going to sell tickets? What are you going to do there? There are a lot of great online places to sell tickets. You can use Eventbrite, Brown Paper Tickets. Both of them are really good event sites with online ticketing capabilities. They both have pretty good integration, so you can integrate them with Facebook through your website, things like that to sell. So you can sell tickets on your website directly. So that's pretty cool as well, because then you're bringing people to your site. Whether you're, if you're a production company, you probably have some kind of a website for your production company. Or if you're a comedian, you probably have a website for your comedy with your tour dates and stuff like that. Well, now you can throw on a ticket page, use your website, so then you're driving traffic to your website, which is good, because when you start driving traffic to your website, it starts pushing your website up in the Google searches and things like that. So it really works out good that way. I personally like Brown Paper Tickets and their capabilities over Eventbrite. The ticket fees are the fees and stuff are about the same. They may be a little different, but the one thing I really like about Brown Paper Tickets is you can get really cheap physical tickets. That's right, because some people don't want to buy online, but they want to buy in advance. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, cool. You can get tickets printed, and then you can have them at the venue and have the venue sell them for you. So people can just go down to wherever the show's going to be and buy their tickets. Then they don't have to pay the service fees, and they're saving a little bit of money. So that's cool too. But you can get for $5 plus it's like, well, I think it's like $7, almost $8 now for shipping. It used to be a little cheaper, but the U.S. Postal Service keeps raising their prices. So that's what it is. It is what it is. You can't do anything about that. But for $10 to $15, you can get a pretty good amount of tickets. You can get like 100 tickets printed for $10 plus the shipping. And they have different levels where you can get 25 tickets or 50 tickets. There's no certain amount. There's no certain quantity that you have to get. So that is a pretty good thing. And that is brownpapertickets.com. You need to check them out. The last thing we're going to talk about as far as producing live shows, and I did talk about that at the beginning when I was talking about picking out your venue, because it's equipment. You got to have a lighting system. You have to have a PA, which is the sound system. It helps if you have a stage. So if your venue doesn't have that, you need to provide that. To make your show better, you're going to need those things. Now, personally, I think if you're trying to be a comedian and you're trying to work the road and you're trying to work independently and get your own gigs, I think if you have the money, or if you can save the money, you should make the investment and buy even a small PA, because it will save you a lot of a lot. I've been to plenty of shows where I showed up and all they had for a sound system was literally a guitar amp and a microphone. And it was a, great big room or, things like that. And I was able to say, well, I have my own PA. I'll just set that up. How's that sound? Now we have a sound system. Or I've been to shows where they didn't have a PA at all. And so I was able to save the day. So it's nice to have a portable PA system that you can keep in your car while you're on the road. If you really want to get into producing as well, I would suggest getting lights and maybe a small portable stage. Get the whole equipment. Of course, when you get all that, you have to have a bigger vehicle. That's why I drive a SUV, so I can carry all this stuff, because most of everything I just mentioned, I do have. I have a PA. I need to get some more lights, but I am working on that. That's in my plan, and I do have a portable stage that I'm working on redoing. So think about all those things, because when you're on the road, very, very useful if you get to a venue and they don't have sound. Because a lot of times, too, when you contact a new venue and if they haven't did comedy or if they haven't did entertainment, you don't know what you're going to get when you walk in. You just think, oh, I got a venue, I'm going to do this show, and just do it. Now that's I'll leave you guys with this too. This is the kind of a thought going back to the venues. Something you should think about: if you're contacting a venue, you should meet at the venue. You should go down there and physically look at the venue. If you just do everything over email and you don't actually go look at it yourself, now granted, if you're doing a show in another town, it might be hard to, but if you have a contact in that town, maybe go have them look at it or go look for pictures online, because that way you have an idea of what you're getting into, because there's nothing worse than showing up to a venue and not knowing what it's going to be, and then suddenly there's a stage, but there's a big old pillar right in front of it and nobody can see the stage. Things like that do happen, so it's good to go look at the venue. A good venue, if you're looking for a place to do a show, I would either contact your local comedy club and see if you can do something on an off night, because they're already made for comedy. They have everything you're going to need. They have their own ticketing, the whole 9 yards, so you can negotiate things with them. That would be the top venue. Then if you want to look into bars, I would just look for bars that already do entertainment, places that have live music, maybe karaoke, things like that, where they're most likely going to have a stage, they're going to have some sound equipment, they're going to have some lights. It's not always the case when they do live entertainment, but most likely. So those are the things that I would check with a venue if I was you. So I hope that this has been useful. I know I don't have all the answers to everything. These are just some quick tips and quick things, aspects of producing a live show to think about. And with that being said, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting. And again, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review. You can find all the extra episodes on the artofbombingpod.com. And now we're doing some stuff on YouTube, so you can go to YouTube, to the Art of Bombing YouTube page, and subscribe there as well. All right, everybody, you guys have a fantastic week. And remember, stay safe so you can live to love. Peace.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitz Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week. And remember, stay safe so you can live to love.